Well, hey leaders, Mike Temple back with you again. And I want to introduce you to a process that I have been using and I've been kind of refining since about 2009 when I became a leadership and strategy advisor. And we are now called executive coaches. But this is a process that you can utilize, and it is scalable. When I first started, most organizations I worked with were, anywhere between $1 to $5 million in revenue. Most of the clients that we work with at Temple Executive Coaching range anywhere between 25, and we've got a few up in the 80 million in revenue range. So this is a process that is scalable. Now, I use this process for a couple of reasons. One, once we do a strategy session, I use this process that I'm going to show you to make sure my clients stay on track. The other reason I use it is that if we come in contact with a new client and they happen to tell us, Mike, our strategy is kind of off the rails, I use this process to ensure that they get back on. And of course, the third one that I use it for is if we take on a client and let's say that we're somewhere midway through the year and they just don't feel comfortable diving into a strategy session, I run them through this process just to kind of get things cleaned up for the year. So depending on where you are, this process will work for you. So as we go through, let me show you. And I got to knock this thing out in about one take because I've got a leadership team that I'm going to take this through here a little bit later. So bear with me, all right? Now, there are 2 points to this process. One is your current state. The other is your desired state. Now, when I say current state, this means where is the organization today, right now, when you start this? A couple of things you might want to measure. One is revenue. When we take on a client, it's more than just revenue we measure. Donna Phoebus, our virtual CFO, she measures, I think, like 5 things in her financial analysis. One of them is liquidity of the organization, your profitability, your sales process, your borrowing capability, and assets on hand. So she dives pretty deep. But for the purpose of this example, we're just going to take a look at revenue. Second one is culture. What's the state of the company culture? Are you seeing the actions and the behaviors that you want within the organization, within your leadership team? And if you want to know more about how I help clients build, to build their culture, click the card somewhere up around here. It'll take you to that video. The other one is leadership team. Do you have the right leadership team in place? Do they reflect the values? Do they show the type of leadership that you want within your organization? So the current state of your leadership team. What about your processes? Are your processes keeping up with the growth of your organization? Let me tell you something. Your organization, its revenue cannot exceed its process. Your process will cripple you. So take a look at your processes. Do you have the right ones in place? Another one you might want to take a look at is market. Where are you in the market of the industry that you're in? What place do you have in the market? Do you even know what your market is? But you got to be open and you got to be honest with yourself. If it's ugly, you got to be honest that it's not very good on some of the things that we're looking at. Don't worry about it, all right? But this has to be open, honest, and it's got to stay fixed, all right? The other point we want to take a look at is your desired state. All right, now that we've taken a look at currently where we're at, we want to look at where do we want to be? Where do we want to be in revenue by a certain time frame? What type of culture do we want? What type of culture do we need to refine? Leadership. Again, looking at if I don't have the leadership and team that I'd like, what type of leaders would I like in the future? Your processes. Which of our processes need to be refined and how do we want them to look? And your market. Take a look at your market. Are you a dominant player in your market? Can you identify opportunities within your market? So these are just some examples of your desired state, where you want to be. Next thing you're going to want to do is place a time frame on this. For the sake of, like I said, I've got a client meeting coming up. So for the sake of this example, we're going to say 90 days. In 90 days, we want to move from our current state to our desired state. And we put some indicators in between, 30, 60, and 90. Now, once you go and you establish this area, what you then take a look at is take out a piece of paper and say, all right, what is everything we need to accomplish to get to our desired state?
You've been listening to the Temple Executive Coaching Podcast. where we engage with experts in business growth for small and medium-sized companies. If you're an expert and would like to be featured on the Temple Executive Coaching Podcast, please email Mike Temple at mike@templeexecutivecoaching.com.